The corridor of the Interstellar Defense Academy was wide, polished, and cold. Light panels ran along the ceiling in perfect lines, shining down on hundreds of cadets moving between classes. Different species walked together, their uniforms the same, cut but shaped for different bodies. Some had tails tucked carefully behind them. Some walked on digitigrade legs. Some had armored skin that reflected the lights like metal. Everyone followed the rules here. Everyone learned quickly who mattered and who did not. Jexiel knew he did not matter. He kept his eyes low as he walked, gripping his datapad too tightly. His species was small, thin-limbed, and soft-skinned. He came from a minor allied world, one that sent resources, but not influence. At the academy, that meant he was tolerated, not respected. He tried to move fast, but the corridor narrowed ahead where several older cadets stood laughing. They cast. They wore the same uniform, but theirs carried extra markings. Elite track. Command lineage. Their posture was relaxed in the way only powerful people could afford. Jexiel slowed. One of them noticed. "Well, look at that," the tall one said, his voice smooth and loud enough to carry. "A wallflower forgot where he belongs." Jexiel stopped. His heart beat too fast. He bowed his head slightly, the polite gesture from his homeworld. "Excuse me," he said softly. "I am late for—" A hand slammed against the wall beside his head. The sound echoed down the corridor. Several cadets nearby flinched. Most kept walking. "You don't speak unless spoken to," another voice said. This one came from behind him. Jexiel froze. He was boxed in now, back to the wall, 3 bodies forming a half-circle around him. They were taller, broader, heavier. One had reinforced knuckles built into his gloves. "This is instruction," the tall one said calmly. Jexiel's datapad slipped from his fingers and hit the floor. No one bent to pick it up. Across the corridor, Mara Kessler was adjusting the strap of her pack when she heard the sound. She stopped walking. Mara was human. Earthborn. First year. Her uniform was new and unadorned, the fabric still stiff. She was not tall by academy standards, not wide, not armored. Her brown hair was pulled back tight, her face unreadable in the way that came from long habit. She had learned early that looking calm was safer than looking scared. She turned her head slightly. She saw the group by the wall. At first, it looked like nothing. Cadets talking, seniors correcting a junior, normal academy life. Then she saw the way Jexiel's shoulders were pressed flat, the way his hands trembled, the way no instructor was nearby. She paused. Around her, other cadets noticed too. Some slowed, glanced, and then looked away. A few shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Nobody stepped in. Mara felt something tighten in her chest. She had seen this before. Different place, round, different uniforms, same shape of power. The tall cadet leaned closer to Jexiel. "Do you know why species like yours never command ships?" he asked, almost kindly. Jexiel swallowed. "No, sir. Because pressure breaks you." The cadet shoved him harder. Jexiel's head struck the wall with a dull sound. He cried out, more in surprise than pain. That sound decided it. Mara moved. Breaths. She did not shout. She did not warn them. She crossed the distance in long, fast steps, her pack sliding off one shoulder. Her heart was steady. Her breathing even. One of the seniors noticed her too late. He turned, smirking. "Hey, freshman!" Her fist connected with his jaw mid-word. The impact was sharp and clean. Bone. The cadet's head snapped sideways, and he stumbled back, crashing into another student. Gasps rippled through the corridor. Brett. Silence followed, thick and stunned. Mara stood between them and Jexiel now, her hand clenched, skin split across her knuckles. Blood welled bright red against pale skin. She did not look at it. The tall cadet stared at her, shock quickly turning to anger. "Do you know who you just hit?" "Yes," Mara said. Her voice was calm, brassed. Someone who was hurting him. "You're Earthborn," another cadet said, as if it explained everything. "Bree, you don't get to interfere." Mara didn't step back. "He didn't get to either!" The injured cadet groaned, pushing himself upright. His eyes burned with humiliation. "You just ended your career." Mara shrugged one shoulder. "Worth it." Security alarms finally sounded, sharp and loud. Footsteps pounded as Academy officers rushed toward the scene. Cadets scattered, whispering urgently. Jexiel slid down the walls slightly, shaking. He stared at Mara, like she was something unreal. She glanced back at him briefly. "You okay?" He nodded, though he wasn't sure it was true.
"Officers arrived, weapons lowered but ready."
"Nobody move," one ordered. Hands visible. Mara raised her hands slowly, blood dripping from her knuckles onto the polished floor. Bree. She did not resist as restraints were placed around her wrists. The tall cadet straightened his uniform, already composing his story. She attacked without cause. Mara met the officer's eyes. "That's a lie." The officer hesitated. Cameras lined the corridor. The truth would be visible soon enough. They escorted everyone away, the hallway buzzing behind them. Later, in a quiet holding room, Mara sat alone on a bench. The restraints were gone. A medical drone hovered near her hand, sealing the split skin. She watched it work without expression. She knew what would come next. Hearings. Discipline. Dispense. Records marked. She had chosen anyway. Rasping. Elsewhere, Jexiel sat wrapped in a thermal blanket, staring at his recovered datepad. His hands had stopped shaking, but his thoughts had not. No one had ever stepped in for him before, especially not a human. Word spread fast at the Academy. An Earthborn had struck an elite. And the walls everyone trusted to protect them from consequence had cracked, just a little. The holding room was quiet except for the soft hum of the lights. Breath. Mara sat straight on the bench, her hands resting on her knees. The skin on her knuckles felt tight where the medical drone had sealed it. She did not look at the door. She did not fidget. Waiting had never scared her as much as other people thought it should. The door finally slid open. 2 instructors entered. One was Commander Varel, tall and sharp-featured, his species known for strict logic and little patience for disorder. The other was Captain Rowe, a heavy-set being with layered skin and calm eyes. They did not sit. They stood in front of her and studied her like a problem that did not fit the expected answer. Mara Kessler, Commander Virel said. Earthborn, first-year cadet. You are aware that striking another cadet is a serious offense.
Yes, sir, Mara replied.
You are also aware, he continued, that you struck a senior cadet of the elite command track. Yes, sir. Commander Virel tilted his head slightly. And yet you do not deny it. No, sir. Captain Rowe watched her closely. Why? Mara did not answer right away. She chose her words carefully. Because it happened. And because he was hurting someone who could not stop it. Psst. That is not your role, Virel said sharply. This academy has systems. Mara looked up then. Her eyes were steady. Those systems were not there. Silence followed. Captain Rowe folded his arms. The corridor footage has already been reviewed, he said. All of it! Commander Virel's expression tightened. Intent does not erase consequence. No, sir, Mara said. But it explains it. They studied her for a long moment. Then Virel turned away. You are dismissed for now. Remain available. There will be a formal hearing. Mara stood, saluted, and left without another word. As she walked back through the academy halls, eyes followed her. Conversation stopped when she passed. Whispers started again the moment she moved on. The story was already changing. Some said she attacked without warning. Some said the senior cadet deserved worse. Some said humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Some said this was exactly why Earthborn were kept out of command positions. Mara ignored it all. Across the academy, in a quieter wing, Jexiel sat in a recovery room with two other cadets from minor species. They spoke in low voices, glancing at the door often. She should not have done that, one said nervously. They will punish her. Yes, Jexiel said, but she did. He replayed the moment again and again in his mind. The sound of impact. The way the senior cadet had looked surprised. Not angry at first, just shocked. As if the universe had broken a rule he did not know could be broken. No one had ever stood between Jexiel and power before. Not teachers. Not officers. Not allies. A human had. Later that cycle, the elite cadets met in a private training chamber. The one Mara had struck paced back and forth, jaw still stiff. She embarrassed us, he said, in front of everyone. She's a first year, another replied. They'll crush her. Not enough, the injured cadet snapped. Earthborns think they're special. They need reminding.
You want retaliation? Someone asked. I want her removed. They all agreed on that much.
The next day, the Academy announced that Cadet Kessler would undergo a comprehensive evaluation. Officially, it was to assess her fitness for continued training. Unofficially, everyone knew what it meant. They expected her to fail. The evaluation arena filled quickly. Instructors stood along the upper platforms, breaths. Cadets crowded the observation tiers, trying not to look too eager. Mara entered alone. She wore standard training gear. No enhancements. No visible armor. Her hair was tied back. Her face calm. The evaluator, a senior combat instructor, spoke clearly. This will test adaptability, restraint, and discipline. You will follow all commands. You will not act unless instructed. Yes, sir, Mara said. The first test was simple. Movement under pressure. The floor shifted. Obstacles rose and fell. Brass. Other species struggled when patterns changed too fast. Mara adjusted without thinking, moving with smooth efficiency. Some observers frowned. The second test introduced opponents. Training drones at first, then live cadets, volunteers from the upper years. They expected aggression. What they saw was control. Mara did not rush. She did not strike first breath. She waited, watched, and redirected. She used momentum against them. She targeted joints, balance points, weak angles. Every move was clean. Every action had a reason. When one opponent overextended, she tapped him out and stepped back immediately. Whispers spread. This isn't brute force. She's calculating. She's holding back. The evaluator's eyes narrowed. The final test came without warning. Multiple opponents. Mixed species. Limited space. This was meant to overwhelm her. Instead, it revealed something else. Mara moved like someone who had learned early that being smaller meant being smarter. She stayed aware of every angle. She never let herself be surrounded. When struck, she absorbed it and moved on. When an opening appeared, she ended the threat quickly and cleanly. The arena fell silent. On the upper tier, Commander Varel watched closely. So did Captain Rowe. This is not Academy doctrine, one instructor murmured. No, Rowe replied quietly. It's survival doctrine. The evaluation ended. Mara stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard but steady. She waited for dismissal. Instead, the evaluator hesitated. You acted with restraint, he said slowly, even when escalation was possible. Yes, sir. Why? Mara thought of the corridor, of Jexil pressed to the wall. Because control matters, she said, but so does timing. The hearing that followed was nothing like what the elites expected. The footage was played. Every angle. Desp. Every moment. The silence in the room was heavy. The senior cadets' claims fell apart under replay. The tradition they hid behind looked thin and ugly when shown without words to soften it. Mara spoke only when asked. She did not insult anyone. She did not apologize for acting. Jexiel testified too, but he spoke. At the end, no dramatic punishment was announced. Public apology either. Mara received a formal warning. A note added to her record. She remained enrolled. But it was not defeat. But it was not defeat. As she left the chamber, Captain Rowe stopped her. You changed something, he said quietly. Mara met his gaze. I didn't plan to. That may be why it worked. That night, as lights dimmed across the academy, conversations continued in every dormitory. Earthborns trained differently. Earthborns did not wait for permission. Earthborns noticed things others ignored. And somewhere in the vast structure of rules and power, a small crack had formed. It would not close easily. The academy did not change overnight. It never did. Buildings stayed the same. Rules stayed written in the same place. Instructors spoke with the same voices. But something beneath the surface had shifted. and everyone could feel it. Mara felt it most when she walked into training halls. Before, people ignored her. Now they watched. Some looked curious. Some looked careful. A few looked openly hostile. She did not respond to any of it. The train, ate, studied, and slept on schedule. She kept her head down and her pace steady. That only made people watch more. In one of the lower gyms, a group of cadets from mixed species struggled through close combat drills. The instructor barked corrections, growing more annoyed by the minute. Movements were stiff. Timing was off. Bigger bodies relied too much on strength. Mara passed by the open doorway. Someone noticed her. Bration. Hey, Earthborn. She stopped. A tall cadet with plaited skin stepped forward. You're the one from the evaluation. Yes, Mara said. How did you do that movement in the third test? Another asked. The one where you didn't strike. Mara hesitated. I shifted my weight and waited. That's it? Someone scoffed. That's it? She replied. They stared at her, confused. After a moment, the instructor waved her in. Show them. Mara demonstrated slowly. She explained in simple words. Balance. Breathing. Breath. Watching shoulders, not hands. Letting the other person choose their mistake. The drill improved immediately. Word spread. It always did. Jexil noticed the change from a different angle. People spoke to him now, not loudly. Not boldly, but they spoke. Breath. They asked if he was okay. They asked what he studied. Rasp. Some even asked his opinion. It felt strange. Dispat. Almost uncomfortable. One evening he found Mara alone in a study alcove, reading quietly. Breath. He stood there for several seconds before speaking. Cadet Kessler. She looked up. Mara is fine. He nodded. Thank you. Again. She closed her book. You don't owe me anything. I know, he said, but things are different. They shouldn't have been that way before, she replied. Jexo studied her face. There was no pride there. No hunger for praise. Just a steady calm. Humans are strange, he said. She smiled slightly. We hear that a lot. Not everyone was adapting. The elite cadets were losing something they had never thought about before. Certainty. Authority no longer worked as easily. People questioned tone. Cameras were watched more carefully. Instructors listened more. That made them angry. They began pushing in other ways. Subtle ways. Scheduling conflicts. Equipment delays. Quiet rumors placed in the right ears. Mara felt the pressure, but she had lived under pressure before. Break. It did not break her focus. What surprised the elites was that other humans began standing the same way she did. Earthborn cadets had always been scattered. Quiet. Bration. Now they started training together. Sharing techniques. Comparing notes. Breath. They did not boast. They prepared. During a joint exercise with off-world forces, a simulated crisis unfolded. Communications failed. Command cadets hesitated, waiting for instruction that did not come. Mara did not wait. She gathered the nearest cadets, mixed species, and gave clear, simple orders. Secure exits. Protect the vulnerable. Control space. They succeeded. The observers noticed. Commander Verrill reviewed the report 3 times. She is not breaking rules, he said. She is exposing weak ones. Captain Rowe nodded. Humans evolved inside chaos. Our systems assume stability. Stability is comforting, Verrill said. And dangerous, Rowe replied. That cycle, an external delegation arrived. Representatives from multiple allied worlds toured the academy. They watched demonstrations, asked questions, took notes. One asked directly, "Is it true an Earthborn struck an elite cadet?" "Yes," Verrill answered. "And remained enrolled?" "Yes." The delegate's eyes gleamed with interest. Pressure built from outside now, not just inside. Mara was summoned again, this time not for discipline, but for assessment. A strategic officer asked her questions about decision-making under uncertainty. She answered honestly, "If you wait for perfect information, you lose time. Time kills." The officer wrote that down. Not all reactions were calm. One night, in a quiet corridor far from cameras, Mara felt it before she saw it. A shift in air. The wrong silence. She stopped. 3 figures stepped out from side passages. Elite cadets. No insignia visible. Faces tight with intent. "You've caused enough trouble," one said. Mara set her bag down slowly. "This is a bad idea." "You think rules protect you?" Another sneered. "No," she replied. "I think witnesses do."
Lights snapped on.
Instructors emerged from both ends of the corridor. Security followed. Ah, the elites froze. Someone had warned them. Someone had planned. Mara had said nothing. She did not need to. The fallout was quiet, but heavy. Records were updated. Tracks were reassigned. Influence weakened. Jexil watched it all with a mix of awe and fear. "She doesn't even try to fight them," he said to another cadet. "No," the cadet replied. "She lets them defeat themselves. As cycles passed, the academy adjusted. Training modules changed. Mixed species drills increased. Human methods were studied, not dismissed. Thus, Mara remained what she had always been, a cadet. She did not lead a movement. Breaths. She simply acted when action was needed. One evening, as she and Jexil walked back from late study hours, he asked quietly, "Why did you really step in that day?" She thought for a moment. "Because if I didn't, I would have learned something about myself that I didn't want to know." He nodded. He understood that. Above them, unseen, observers marked new assessments. New possibilities. The academy was still standing, but it was no longer unchanged. And far beyond its walls, attention was beginning to turn toward Earthborns. not as quiet participants, but as something far more unsettling. As humans. The first sign that things had moved beyond the academy came quietly. It arrived as a change in schedule. Bara noticed it when her training slate updated without warning. Her name had been added to a joint strategic exercise. Not a cadet-level drill, not a simulation meant for learning mistakes. This was a monitored scenario with observers from multiple allied forces.
She read the details twice.
Jexia leaned over from the opposite desk. That isn't normal, he said. No, Mara agreed. It isn't. The exercise took place in a remote training sector designed to mimic a damaged space station. Veracity. Gravity would fluctuate. Communications would fail at random. Patient authority would rotate or disappear completely. In other words, it was chaos. Cadets gathered in the staging area divided into mixed species teams. Some wore confidence like armor. Others looked uncertain. A few glanced at Mara, then away, unsure what they felt about her presence. An instructor spoke. There will be no central command. Breaths adapt, as needed. Success is survival and mission completion.
Gates opened. Inside the station, lights flickered.
Alarms sounded. The floor tilted, then corrected. Operation. Teams scattered almost immediately, each reacting in different ways. Some froze, waiting for orders that did not come. Mara did not wait. She assessed her surroundings in seconds. Narrow corridors, limited cover, breath, too many blind angles. She signaled to two nearby cadets without speaking. Hand gestures. Simple. They followed, ranked. Not because she outranked them, because it made sense. They secured a junction point and helped others reach it. When gravity dropped suddenly, Mara anchored herself and assisted those who lost balance. When systems failed, she switched to visual cues and physical checks. A larger cadet hesitated at a sealed hatch. Protocol says wait. Mara shook her head. Protocol assumes help is coming. She forced the hatch manually. Observers watched closely. Pay. What is she doing? One asked. She is building stability, another replied. Without authority. The exercise dragged on longer than expected. Teams dissolved and reformed. Mistakes cost time. Poor decisions cost simulated lives. Operation. Mara's group adapted. Not perfectly, but effectively. They finished with one of the highest survival rates. Brit. Afterward, no one applauded. That was not the Academy's way, but eyes lingered longer than before. That same cycle, messages arrived from outside. Desk, requests, inquiries, invitations. Human training methods were being requested by allied forces, but not officially at first. Quietly, carefully, as if afraid of the answer. Commander Varel reviewed them all, his expression unreadable. This will cause friction. Captain Rowe nodded. It already has. The elites felt it too. Their influence was shrinking. Their certainty eroding. Where once they had been the obvious future leaders, now others were being considered. Not because they were stronger, because they adapted. One evening, Mara was called to a secure briefing room. Not alone this time, Beration. Several Earthborn cadets sat with her, along with a few non-human cadets from minor worlds. An officer spoke plainly. "You are being evaluated as a unit." "For what?" someone asked. "For reality," the officer replied. The briefing showed recorded engagements, real ones, piracy, border conflicts, failed evacuations, situations where doctrine had failed. In these scenarios, the officer said, humans perform better than projected. "Why?" another officer asked. The answer was simple. Because they expect things to go wrong. Training intensified after that. Harder, predictable, more honest. Mara did not become a leader by title, but people looked to her anyway. She corrected quietly, encouraged sparingly, berated, intervened only when necessary. Jack still trained beside her whenever he could. He grew stronger, more confident, not because he wanted to fight, but because he no longer felt small. "You changed the academy," he said once. Mara shook her head. "The academy changed because it had to." Not everyone agreed. A formal complaint reached the Central Council. It claimed humans were destabilizing traditional command structures, that their methods undermined unity, that their influence was dangerous. The council reviewed the data. They did not ignore results. The response was cautious but clear. Humans would remain. Human methods would be studied. Oversight would increase. Some saw it as restraint. Others saw it as fear. The first real test came sooner than expected. A distress signal reached Allied space. A transport convoy damaged in a debris field. Multiple species aboard. Limited time. The academy was not meant to respond, but the nearest trained personnel were cadets. A decision was made. A mixed team was deployed under observation only. But no one told her why. Burrs. The mission was fast and messy. Real damage, real stakes. Real people waiting in failing compartments. Command signals lagged. Someone hesitated. Mara didn't. She redirected teams. Cut through blocked access points. Prioritized life over cargo. She ignored rank when it conflicted with reality. They succeeded. No one celebrated afterward. They were too tired, too aware of what could have gone wrong. Reports were filed. Across Allied space, quiet discussions began. Humans were no longer an unknown. They were a variable. Back at the academy, the walls felt thinner. The rules more flexible. Or maybe just more honest. Mara sat on a bench one night looking out at the stars beyond the station hull. Jexil sat beside her. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked.
She thought about the corridor.
Breath. The wall. The punch. The moment everything shifted. "No," she said. "But I know it doesn't stop." He nodded. Nothing important ever does. Far beyond the academy, observers adjusted projections. Threat models. alliance structures. Humanity had not announced itself. It had simply acted. And the galaxy was beginning to understand that once humans stepped in, things did not go back to the way they were before. The Academy felt different now, even in silence. Mara noticed it on an ordinary morning. Cadets moved with more awareness. Conversations stopped less often when she passed. No one stared the way they once had. She was no longer a disruption. She was part of the structure. That should have felt like victory. It didn't. Victory implied an end, and Mara could feel that nothing was ending. If anything, things were only beginning. The final review session of the cycle brought instructors, observers, and external representatives together in one chamber. Cadets were not usually invited. This time, several were. Mara sat among them, hands folded, posture relaxed. Jexil sat 2 seats away, nervous but proud to be there at all. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as a projection filled the air. It showed timelines, data streams, and simulations. Human response curves were highlighted again and again. A council representative spoke. "We have reviewed months of observation. Dispatch. Academy changes. Field responses. Joint operations." Another added, "Human cadets consistently act before instruction without descending into disorder." A third voice followed. "Careful and controlled." Brask. "That behavior challenges traditional command logic." Commander Varel stood. "Traditional command logic assumes stable conditions." "The galaxy is not stable." Captain Rowe spoke next. "Humans are not reckless. They are conditioned by uncertainty. They assume failure and plan around it." The projection shifted. A paused frame showed Mara in the corridor months earlier stepping forward. "No rank," Rowe continued. "No authority. Only decision." The council members exchanged looks. "This behavior spreads," one said. "Others begin to adapt." "Yes," Virel replied. "That is called learning." The final decision was not dramatic. No declarations. No speeches broadcast across space. It was a directive. Desperate, human training doctrines would be formally integrated. Mixed species command paths would be revised. Protection clauses would be enforced, not suggested, and Earthborn cadets would no longer be sidelined by default. When the session ended, the room emptied slowly. Conversations were quieter. Thoughtful, Jexel let out a breath he had been holding. They listened. Mara nodded.
They couldn't ignore the data. Outside the chamber, the Academy carried on.
Drills. Classes. Life. Weeks later, a new class of cadets arrived. Fresh uniforms. Nervous expressions. They looked around, trying to understand where they fit. One of them, small and unfamiliar, froze in a busy corridor as older cadets passed too close. Before fear could settle, someone gently guided them aside. "Watch the flow," a voice said. "Don't let it push you." The voice belonged to a human. Mara saw it happen from a distance and kept walking. She did not need to step in anymore. That night, she received a message marked priority, not a summons. An offer. Post-graduation placement. Special advisory track. Not command, not frontline. A role designed for people who saw gaps before others did. She read it once. Then she set it aside. There was still time. So, on a quiet observation deck, Mara stood with Jexil, looking out at the slow drift of stars. The station lights reflected softly across the glass.
You could have stayed quiet, Jexiel said. You know that, right? Yes, Mara replied.
You could have let it pass. Yes, but you didn't. Mara thought back to that moment again. The sound. Oh. The choice that had not felt like a choice at all. Desk. If I had, she said, I would have learned that silence was safer than action. Jexiel nodded slowly. And that would have changed you. Yes. Below them, training teams moved through exercises. Human and non-human together, adjusting. Grasp. Learning. The academy was no longer a place where power went unchallenged. It was a place where action mattered. Elsewhere in Allied space, reports continued to arrive. Bath. Human crews stabilizing collapsing missions. Human advisors preventing escalation through early intervention. Breath. Human units stepping into gaps no one else wanted to acknowledge. They were not louder than others. They were faster. They did not ask who was supposed to act. Perhaps they acted. Back at the academy, a wall in one corridor had been repaired. The surface was smooth now. Clean. Reyes. No marks remained. Most people had forgotten what happened there. Mara hadn't. She passed it one last time before departure for field rotation. She did not slow. She did not touch it. The wall no longer mattered. What mattered was what came after. Brand. And across the galaxy, more and more beings were learning a simple truth. When humans step in, it is not to dominate. It is to stop things from breaking. And once that happens, nothing ever returns to the way it was before.